Alright, so what I'm going to be talking about in this episode is really probably the most wouldn't be very interesting because I don't have much quote-unquote knowledge about this topic to some degree that I'm going to be comparing this to. But I want to be somewhat chronologically consistent with the game, and I do believe that some of these parts should be shown to people because I'm sure that they could find it interesting. But I'll make my own assertions here of what could possibly have meaning to some degree for me. Like, I'm not really too into this, just like with the pyramids thing. I wasn't too knowledgeable about it or whatever, but I'll say my piece, but I'll show the footage. First thing is, so after you get through the deep darkness, you get into this village called the Tenda village, and it's these little green guys. And pretty much none of them will talk to you more than like 1-2 words because they're all too shy to talk. So basically, you're told the only way that you're going to be able to communicate with these guys and get this next obstacle out of your way, this big rock, is to get this book overcoming shyness. And you find out that Apple Kid happens to have borrowed this book from the library, and basically as soon as he calls you up about this, he seems to get in a struggle, and basically he's kidnapped. So, and he tells you that he's at Dr. Andonut's lab when this happens. So basically you go back to Winters, to Andonut's lab. His pet rat gives you this thing, this eraser item, which then basically, since you saw it before, is you have to go to this place under the Stonehenge area that is just behind Dr. Andonut's lab. And this is basically one of Gygas's invading forces' bases of operation, I guess you could say. So you go through this dungeon. It's not really that hard, just because you have such a powerful group at this point that even if it's mostly Gygas's invading forces, it's really not that difficult. But you get to the end, and you find out that these starmen, these Gygas forces, have been abducting people, as you've kind of had alluded to previously to a degree, that people are being abducted. And when you defeat the Starman Deluxe, which is I guess you could say the general or commander of this whole base of operation for these forces, all the abducted people have been freed, and, the bunch of people. Before I go on, I'll just show the clip, or the clips, for this part, and then I'll talk about it in more detail after. So, you beat the Starman Deluxe, as I said, and the base shuts down, and all the people that were abducted or kidnapped by the Gygas's forces here, they are freed. And while this is the thing I was mentioning, I don't really have much knowledge on, I guess you could say, is this kind of made me think of something that's happening, I guess, recently. I mean, this was always a thing, even like years ago, decades ago or whatever, there's always a theme of like, that the screen was always presenting of like kidnapping and abductions and a lot of it being fake BS, especially coming from the screen kind of stuff. And this kind of made me think of that. But so many other parts of the game, or other parts of the game also have that kind of theme. Like, maybe it's just a thing with JRPGs, a cliche or whatever. But, you know, initially, Ness has to save Paula because she was abducted by the Happiest cult. And then, not so far later, after you get the Foreside, she gets abducted again, and eventually you save her, but people have been mentioning that something has been going on in the screen and recently where there's like been some girl or something that was abducted and they found their body parts and stuff like that. I don't know, it's just the whole theme of abductions and stuff like that, not just alien abductions, but like just kidnapping and stuff like that. So that makes me think of this a little bit, especially in this where it's like so many people being abducted. I'm sure that brings up a lot of bells to some people for other occurrences, I guess you could say, especially those that believe in the whole aliens thing. But, you know, I don't know. I just look at that as just a generic kind of alien trope thing with abducting people and such. Something that I wanted to put a little bit more light onto involving this that it made me consider was, for this one I'm pushing it a bit, maybe. I don't know, maybe I'm trying to, this is one of those things where I'm trying to put a square peg through a circle hole or whatever. It's like, oh, I'm trying to make it work. But I don't know, it's just making me think, like, so Ness, as I talked about in the last video with the yellow submarine and the solar plexus bridge chakra thing, relation I saw with that. I'm almost, because this happens basically as soon as you get through that area, which one could possibly say that was going through the yellow chakra phase, whatever, the bridge between the earthly chakras and the spiritual ones. I could almost see this like, this part was almost a representation of the next one in the hierarchy, or not so much hierarchy, but in the chakra chart or whatever. Like, you just went through yellow, and now you're going through green, or in this case it'd be the heart chakra, which at least from, if I'm going by a few pictures or whatever, diagrams online, because I don't really know about this stuff, so if I'm going by some of these, the heart chakra, the green one, is the first one in the kind of, I guess you could say, the spiritual progression or whatever of the chakras and such. And it represents like love, forgiveness, compassion, will to love, healing, calming, balancing, power of compassion, stuff like that. I almost see that in this, and like I said, maybe I'm pushing it a bit, and maybe the colors don't relate too much to it in a way, but the people here that were abducted, they're suspended in this like green goo or green ooze or whatever. And, they're basically saying when they're in the tubes how uncomfortable they are and like, please help and everything. And, obviously when you let them out, they're happy about it. But I almost view that sort of with the green color, it just made me think like, okay, maybe there's some relation here, maybe. The color and the action of what is going on, what the result is of freeing them is a act of, because all these people are at some point you've pretty much met them in the game, like they are acquaintances or even like you could say loved ones to a degree, like, ones that you care for. I would see this as an act of love and especially compassion that you're doing to free them. And even though you do this in other parts of the game as well, like you help people, just like in 3, like you help them get rid of the zombies and such, and in so many other places, but in this one it's like especially prevalent, I guess, because they are, you could see them like in immediate physical danger or whatever. So you act in that way and you're kind of expressing the heart chakra. You are expressing love, compassion, and forgiveness, I guess. That's just how I looked at this part. So I find it very interesting. Like, I'm probably going to do a video on this some point after where I kind of just try to, like I said, maybe I'm pushing it, but I feel like I could get there where it's like I can relate all these chakras to some point in Ness's spiritual personal journey here and see it throughout the game. And it kind of, I feel like I could sort of see that. So in this case, I see this as the heart chakra almost expression of that. And I'm going to talk about that again in this next section. So basically what happens is that, like I said in the beginning of the video, you get this book of overcoming shyness for these Tenda villagers, and the chief shows them all the book and everything, and then they all overcome their shyness and they're able to properly speak to you afterward. But in terms of what I was just talking about with the chakra, like this, it sounds like it's just a nice thing to do. Obviously, you need to do it to progress in the game, and you help them by doing this. But I almost look at this, like I said, maybe I'm pushing it, as quickly going to the next rung of the chakra hierarchy in a way, because after this, or after the heart chakra, now you're at the throat chakra, the blue one, which represents self-expression, choice, will, following your dreams, faith, trusting life, at least from this chart. And I'll go more for the self-expression part in this example. Will to express. And, as you could imagine, this is like the one that of self-expression, like your throat, your vocal cords and all that stuff, your larynx is what allows you to express yourself through word, at least, and that's what this would represent. And I almost see See, this one is the one that I would see as more, I don't know, kind of towards the earthly ones, but I don't know. It's, like I said, I'm completely new to this kind of thing as of just recently, but I do find it very interesting in many ways. But this one, I would think, like, you're expressing yourself to other people in the fake reality or whatever, in the physical world kind of thing. So, I don't know, this one, but anyway, if we're going up the rung, there is no blue color that I see, besides maybe the next part, there is blue in the background, but that's neither here nor there, but sure, maybe. But I see that you're helping these Tenda villagers learn to express themselves once again, to overcome their shyness. And I guess you could say maybe that kind of represents what I'm trying to get at with this blue throat chakra part, just after you got past, at least by what I'm representing, the heart chakra. Even more so kind of shows this is because technically the next, your sanctuary location, Ness can hear himself speaking in his own mind, and it showed on the display. And actually, yeah, that's interesting because he doesn't really, you don't ever hear him talk aloud, just as, that's just a cliche theme in like all JRPGs pretty much, is the silent protagonist or whatever. But this is the only time you really, for the most part, hear him speaking, or not hear him, but see him speaking himself. Like he says, "This is Ness," kind of thing. I'm speaking. And then even more so, you have rocks in this area and the area afterward that speak. So it's just this kind of thing after thing after thing of things expressing themselves. And that's why I kind of am connecting this, and I think it's interesting to this throat chakra, because that's just what I'm seeing from this. I'm sure there can be way more other things from that, but from these things I'm showing, but this is just what it made me think of, and maybe what I'm trying to bend to my own narrative here, whatever. But that's what I was finding, so take it or leave it, whatever. Still interesting to me either way. The next part I'm going to go right through is basically the Saturn Valley coffee break, but this time it is a tea break with one of the Tenda villagers here. And it's the same kind of deal, but it still says some interesting stuff. Maybe not as, at the time, profound as the Saturn Valley the coffee break. So, but this one I'll still go through because it is interesting no matter which way. So I'll show that and then get back. Like a great tapestry, vertical and horizontal threads have met and become intertwined, creating a huge, beautiful image. Now, this part is, while it is, kind of poetic or whatever you want to say, it's in that way. It is also interesting in the way of something like the idea of fate and destiny, I guess you could say to some degree, but this also becomes more apparent in interestingly, the next video, where there's going to be this talking rock saying some pretty profound stuff about what Ness has to do next and all that stuff, basically saying like he and all the others in this destiny, this journey, this fate, their fates and their destinies have all intertwined in some way. They're now overlapping and such. So just the way that it words this, that's what it kind of alludes to a degree, at least how I look at it. You may have cursed this never-ending journey. You have known injury and defeat, but you have struggled on to reach this place. Your inborn intelligence and courage has helped bring you here. You have believed in your friends, and as a group, you have supported each other. Have you ever stopped to consider how much your power has grown? Now you can fell enemies in Noanette and Tucson with one blow. As you certainly know, you cannot turn back. Gygas, the archfiend of the universe, is growing frightened of you and your power. He is searching for ways to end your journey. And this just kind of alludes back to what was said, just to a degree, in the Saturn Valley coffee break. Basically the idea of you have struggled much, you've went through much pain, but you have grown from it. And basically just that, concept that some of us believe, where we've come here for a reason, we've come here to some degree to suffer, kind of, suffer in some ways, because if you don't suffer in some ways, if you don't feel adversity, if you don't feel anguish, if you don't feel pain, you're not going to learn anything. You're going to learn very little from not having those experiences in some way, negative as they are. And obviously in his case, the help of physical help and all that stuff, the literal help of his friends and all sticking together and everything, they have gotten to this point. And we could say the same with the people in our lives that have helped us in that way. Maybe not in the exact same way in this degree, but in a similar way. Even just the people in this little community, whatever, the parts where we've helped each other get through these issues that we've had and support each other throughout our own paths and all that stuff. And the thing of Gygas growing frightened of their power, and it's kind of like with us to a degree, where we know our own power and such, and we know that those, the minions and stuff that some of us look at in a negative light and all that, even though some of us know their purpose, their role here. And we do realize that, they are frightened of our abilities, our power, because we know that we are greater than them. We know and they know that we are greater than them in that degree, in this sense. In this place that it doesn't mean that much or whatever. Like, in the important parts, we are more powerful. That's kind of how I look at that, in a way. From here, the challenge grows, and your adventure will take you beyond anything you've ever imagined. You are drawing near to Gygas. Remember, when you are suffering hardships, your enemy also struggles. And, you could look at that as the kind of... that's one of the better examples of that, saying the as above, so below. As you are struggling and you are going through hardships, so is your quote-unquote enemy, or your adversaries in a way. So, yeah, as above, so below. You need to suffer to grow, but same thing is that when they're suffering, you're suffering. When you're suffering, they're suffering. Whatever, That's how I interpret that. By the way, do you know where Pokey went? When this cup of tea is finished, your adventure will continue. Your destiny pulls you in the right direction. Believe in yourself and press forward. Now, the Pokey part, that's just kind of like foreshadowing, like, where's that guy who's been fucking with you this whole time? That kind of deal. And then you'll see later on that, yes, he is indeed much a part of this. But the more interesting part to me, your destiny pulls you in the right direction. Believe in yourself and press forward. And obviously, that's what we know to, I at least I'm talking more for myself, I guess. We know that this destiny or whatever, our destiny is pulling us in the right direction for ourselves, what we have to do. Obviously, always believe in yourself and press forward. Extremely important, just simple advice right there or whatever is like, yeah, just keep pressing forward. Believing in yourself. And as with the coffee break, I wish you luck. So it's like, who exactly is talking here? And I don't know, the reality, Ness's true self, inner self, whatever, the greater energy being, whatever, the creation energy, I don't know, something outside of that, outside of him, is talking here. So yeah. But anyway, the first part might have not been that interesting to some people, just because, like I said, I don't know much about that, the recent news topics and such, but just something I thought about. And the chakras, even though I might have been scraping the barrel or whatever, I was searching for the answers, and I was making up the answers, whatever. It just sort of spoke to me a little bit in that way. It made me think of that. And that's why I wanted to mention it. And the cup of tea, obviously very profound stuff, but not too much different like the cup of coffee that we had many episodes ago. But still very interesting and very profound things to say, especially the intertwining part, where it's going to be mentioned later by this talking rock that the fates being overlapping each other and such. So just alluding to that, I guess, but very interesting, and maybe that all of our destinies, all of our fates, all of our experiences here are connected, are intertwined in some way. Anyway, as usual, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.